the Real Estate Players Podcast. Real talk, real players.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Players Podcast. Joe Pizzaro, James Wilson, and we have our new co-host for 2025, Alexia Tuttle.
Hello, hello.
Hey, what's going on? Today we got a great guest, an award-winning interior designer for multifamily, Lisa Landry. What's going on, Lisa?
Happy to be here. Lots going on.
Yeah, so you have won multiple awards in multifamily design. Tell us how you kind of got started in that business. And then I think you ended up getting into investing as well, right?
Yep, sure did. So about 25 years ago, I started my interior design firm, Landry Designs, and we started with residential, and then we kind of moved into commercial because a lot of our residential customers owned businesses and wanted us to work on their commercial projects, like their business offices and things. So we started doing that. And then about 15 years ago, I had a property management company actually contact me that managed 45 apartment communities. They were owned by just 5 families, actually, and they bought and hold their properties. And he just found our website and asked if I could take a look at redoing some of their properties. They needed to do CapEx work, major CapEx work to 10 of them in the next year. And I said, well, I've never worked on multifamily, but I'll come take a look. And so went and looked at those properties and realized that it was really very similar to what we were already doing in residential and commercial. These are homes that people live in. These are offices that they work out of. So we started doing those 10 projects that year. And they were all B and C class communities. Very surprising for me. I'd never been inside a B or C class community. And so just to see how they could be a value add opportunity was really interesting. And we ended up entering 5 of those. We had them professionally photographed, entered them into an international design contest that was judged by magazine editors from across the country. And they didn't have a multifamily category. They just had a commercial category. So we entered them there. And they actually swept the category. They won first, second, and third. And these were all, not real nice apartments, but you can make them look super cool and be a great community for people to live in. So we got so interested that we started developing more and more resources to work on multifamily properties. And so now we've done hundreds of multifamily properties and we work on communities across the country. We really specialize in B and C because there's so much value add there.
I was about to say, you probably have a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, the A's are already pretty nice, so when they need a refresh, we do work on A communities as well. But B and C is really our sweet spot because people take over and they don't really know what to do. And we can guide that and make sure that the money's going the right place and that we get the biggest impact for the money. So then about maybe, 5 or 6 years ago, I got really interested in moving some of my money out of the stock market because it was so volatile and I wanted to find another opportunity. And so I started looking at real estate. My dad is actually a commercial realtor and he also owns commercial properties and rental properties like residences. My son had been buying and flipping houses and then also has an Airbnb and now he's into assisted living. So I started researching the asset classes in general for real estate and found multifamily. And I thought, well, I've never thought about myself investing, but over 15 years, we've learned a lot. We're on site with these properties for hours on end when we're measuring and installing and doing big reveal day and all those kinds of things, and talking to all the ownership teams and the property management teams and the on-site teams and the maintenance teams. We've just learned so much through those years. So thought I'm going to try that. And I started going to a bunch of conferences. I went to what I call Podcast University. I listened to hundreds of podcasts on multifamily to learn the terminology and like challenges and all those kinds of things. And ended up joining a mentorship group and got just super involved in the community. It's actually a very small community. And that's where I met James. And so then just started looking for partnership opportunities. And it actually took me a couple of years to find partners that I felt comfortable with. And I was an asset manager on that first deal as well. So very, very involved. So running Landry Designs full time. I have a team that runs it basically, but working on that about 50% of my time. And then working on my multifamily GP deals the other 50% of the time. And we actually just went full cycle on that first deal. We held it for 3 years. And it was just great. I mean, really good returns for the investors, super smooth transition. That was our first disposition. And it's just great to go full cycle on a deal, see what all of that is like. So,
Well, you guys must have
fun
got
job.
in at the right time on that one
Yeah,
before everything hit, right?
Well, the last 2 years have been very challenging, even on that asset. That asset was a C-class community. And, we elevated it to like a B minus, I would say, and just worked really hard as asset managers daily on making sure that everything was running smoothly. That's the thing that I found as an asset manager is you can't just trust the property management company to run it. There's
well,
just
there's a
too many
saying.
things.
It's like
Yeah.
people have property managers, but they're not asset managing.
Yes.
I think that was like the biggest headache that I
Yes.
saw in the past few years too. Do you know the
Things
debt
just fall through
structure
the
on that
cracks.
deal? Like,
What'd
I'm
you say?
sure the debt structure on that deal, I'm sure that was favorable in the past couple of years.
It was, but we had a bridge loan. So, that was still when we were doing bridge loans. It was 2021, and everybody did, 90% of people did bridge loans. So it was coming due right now. And we had to decide, are we going to sell? Are we going to hold and refinance? What do we want to do? And we just decided to take it to market just to see. I think we had 24 tours and maybe like 14 offers or something. And then we went into best and final and we narrowed it down to 4 and we had phone calls with 2 and, picked one. And so it was just a great education experience to go all the way through that process and see where we are today. All these bridge loans are what is causing the challenge, for everybody. You've got to decide an extension, refinance, sell. And so right now it's pretty tricky.
Yeah, the market today, luckily in DFW, if you get a deal in Dallas, in the Dallas area, the competition is still high throughout the cycles. So getting a deal in Dallas is nice because you get a lot of offers and a lot of bids. So it's glad to hear that you guys made it out.
Yep. Yep. That's true. And
So
this one was in Dallas.
I wondered if, obviously upgrading, countertops, appliances, you're going to raise the value, but just just design in general can also raise value. Tell us how, like some of examples of not just renovating the typical interiors, but what else can you do to increase value?
Yes, and that's so important because what I found through this process is that most of the ownership team individuals are men. And when they do their business plan, they put in a lot of CapEx money for all the cool men stuff, like asphalt and building things and tearing things down and knocking out walls. And, they'll put in maybe a park things that there's some kind of construction involved. That's where they put all the money. And they're forgetting that we need to leave money for the rebranding and the elevation of the leasing office and the elevation of the model unit and the elevation of the signage. Those are the things people see. Those are the things that people are comparing when they're on the website looking at a bunch of different apartment communities and which ones are they going to go look at. So we always talk about you've got to leave that budget from the beginning in your business plan. And we work with people when they're putting LOIs in. That's when the best time is for us to come in and just talk to us about the deal. If you're going to put in an LOI, we can give you a placeholder for budget. Once we look at the website, kind of you tell us the business plan, what your ideas are, how long do you want to hold, what's the tenant base, those kinds of things. And then when you put that budget in and we can get started when you hit the ground running, if you get awarded the deal, we can just get so much done so quickly. So what we always recommend first is, what does the exterior look like, obviously? What does the exterior of the property look like? Because that's the first thing. Can they find the leasing office? Is directional signage good? What does the monument sign look like? What are the building signs? All those rebranding kind of things can be going on at the same time that other things are going on, because that does take some time to get all that made, particularly monument signage and things like that. Are you keeping the name? Are you changing the name? What's your color palette? What are the properties around you? What's your competition? We don't want to look like another property that's right around you. We want to look different. And then the hub of the wheel is the leasing office, because that's where everybody comes in. So the thing that's tricky is that men are creating these business plans in most cases And women are the ones who decide where you're going to live, typically. Like if it's a husband and wife, if the wife doesn't feel comfortable there, safe there, whatever, doesn't like the kitchen, whatever, you're probably going to go to a different apartment community. So we need to make sure that we get that compromise of the two so that when couples come in or families come in or solo women come in or solo men come in, whatever, it's appealing to everyone. And that leasing office is that first impression. So we talk about when you walk up, is it all perfectly clean? Is the door clean? Is there, there shouldn't be any leaves around. The door shouldn't squeak when you open it. You should be greeted by somebody and they should stand to greet you when you come in. What does it look like? It should look like a model home when you open that door. What does it smell like? No trash out, all these kinds of things are little things that make a big impact because you only have about 10 to 15 seconds from when someone walks into a space for them to think, I could consider living here or not. They're going to make that decision very quickly.
First
So
impression.
leasing office is number one.
Yeah, I'm actually running through that issue right now with the rebranding of a C+ class in Fort Worth, 76 unit, and I'm re-signing, doing the signage. We're doing all the recolors, but the leasing office is so small.
Yes.
Like there's always, I'm like, that's where my mind is like, okay, I'm a tomboy at heart, like design wise. I'm like, I have no idea. That's when I was like, oh yeah, I probably should have talked to you.
That's a good point because the one that we just sold has a 1-room leasing office. It's so small, and a tiny little bathroom. But we made that look so amazing. And that's what, when it's photographed, goes onto the website. And that's what draws people to come look, So it doesn't matter how big it is or how small it is. It will change the budget because this budget would be smaller for a smaller space. But we still need to make that look like, wow. When we talk about model units, a lot of people who live in apartments would love to own a home, but they can't afford it right now or they can't qualify right now. And so they still go look at model homes. They still go and like get ideas and things like that. So we want even C class to look like a model home when you walk in. It doesn't have to be high-end product, but it should look like, wow. And it should be really dramatic and impactful where when they go look at other properties throughout the day, because a lot of times they'll look at 3 to 5 in one day, they can go, oh, that was that orange one with that real friendly girl. Or, that was that one that had that really cool chandelier when you first walked in or whatever. You've got to do something to set yourself apart.
How do you
Yeah,
handle
that's-
budget constraints with
That was
designs like
actually my
that?
question, Jane.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
The budget's super important, and that's why it's so good for us to get in at the LOI phase so that we can block that budget for you. We have a multifamily menu of services, and we review that on the very first Zoom call that we have with the team when we're talking about a project. And it's really just based on size, first of all, and then quality that you want. So, if it's a C-class property, we can use our kind of beginning price point products because what Landry Designs does, just so you know, is we sell all the furnishings, just like a store. It's like one-stop shopping. We sell all the furnishings that go inside all these spaces. But we also can assist with exterior paint and renderings, selecting all of that, working with the signage company, helping with logos, determining, paint colors, and even branding colors, because that's so important. So we help with all the different things, but it's good for us to get in at the beginning and figure out what size is it, what quality range are we looking at, and then we can give you a budget range, a really specific block that you can hold, in your budget for this particular part of the CapEx work.
So you're saying we need a female on the GP team, basically.
Yes. And there
That's-
are a lot of
That's
things.
what we did
A lot
with
of
this
times-
podcast, by the way.
What'd you say?
We added Alexia for that same reason.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of times the one who's
Podcast GP.
underwriting, what?
Podcast GP.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of times the one who's underwriting the deal is male. And so they're the ones creating the budget, and so that's why, that's been my mission for the last, 5 years since I've been in multifamily investing, is to really push it out there that you've got to have this placeholder for this budget because it can change everything. There's a really well-known group that we do a lot of projects for. Every deal they buy, we do across the country. And the very first deal we did with them, they left a no budget really, but they had a really tiny, tiny little budget for this property. And we did what we could with that budget. It was okay. I mean, the stuff we did looked good, but it just wasn't full and finished looking. And they told us at the time, Lisa, we know we messed up. The next time we're going to put a bigger budget in. We're going to get the budget from you to put in. Well, from then on, every deal that we've done with them, they've had that, allowance that's more feasible, and their deals just turn and sell, turn and sell. They're just much more profitable. You have more value in your property when it looks cool, when it's memorable, and there's really three things that happen when you redo a property like this. First of all, the people who live there are so excited. They're like, oh my gosh, they're redoing everything. It's so nice now. So your renewal rate goes up, which helps. Secondly, when new people are coming in to look, they want to live there because it's so cool. So your occupancy, goes up. But the third thing is that the on-site team who works there, this is their everyday life. They're there for like 8 or 10 hours a day, and they love coming to work when it's beautifully designed, efficient, easy to maintain, traffic paths are correct, everything's laid out just right. And so your employee retention goes up, your turnover goes down. So all three of those things I think are super important in getting your NOI up. And that's what all of our multifamily specialists are trained in, is how do we get the NOI up as fast as we can?
Question on that front is, if you have the different pillars, right? You have the rebranding, the signage, the leasing office, the remodeling, the landscaping. What order of priority is that? If
We
you have
really
a
can work.
budget.
Yeah, we really can work on all those things at one time.
Yeah.
The team will have all your different areas that you're working on. And, 1 week we might be, working on the designs for the leasing office or the model unit. And then we just, like the next week, we're working on the signage with you. And it can all be done together. And budget-wise, I think all those are super important to leave in the budget. Now, you might have that year 1, we're going to do this, year 2, we're going to do this, that kind of thing. And we just work with you on that. But with the design part, let's say for furnishings, if you're redoing the leasing office and you need new furniture and desks and lighting and all those kinds of things, and maybe for the model unit too, we do all that design work. We present to you with options. You pick your favorites. We place all those orders, and then it takes like 8 to 12 weeks to come in. So there's that big gap of time where you can be working on other things, or we can be working with you on other things. Let's work on the signage now. All this is on order. Let's work on landscaping colors, the Bark Park, whatever amenities you want to do as well. So it depends on how fast you want to go. On my deal, within the first year, we had all of our CapEx done. Within 6 months,
what if
we had most
they
of it
have
done.
a small budget? Then what do you put priority on, is what I'm saying. Like, that's,
Yeah.
I feel like the biggest thing now is I'm seeing all these estimates come in, and you're just like, I'm over budget and
Yes.
everything. So how do you peel apart those layers?
I always say number 1 is the leasing office, because that's what people see when they drive up. So A, have directional signage where they can find it easily. B, have it look cool from the outside. Even if you don't paint the rest of the buildings or anything, paint the leasing office if the brick is not good, or just freshen the door or whatever. Make sure that looks really good. And then go ahead and redesign and furnish the leasing office. It doesn't have to be construction. Nothing has to be. I mean, we can make it look amazing with, paint and new furnishings in the space. So I say that's the hub of the wheel. If you can't impress them when they come to see your property with the leasing office, you don't really have a chance. It's the first thing. It's the first impression.
Which is powerful, considering how long you've been in the space. You know this.
Yes. No, I know. Yeah.
What's
And people
number 2?
say, what?
What's number 2?
Okay, well, let me just talk about this too. The people say that people don't use the leasing office. Like they're like, well, they pay their rent online, they place their maintenance request online, but we're on site all the time. And it is like a revolving door. I don't know about y'all as asset managers, but I go and I sit at my properties for every 2 weeks. I go and I'll spend like a couple hours. I sit there on my laptop. I want to hear what's happening as people are coming through. I want to hear the phone calls. I want to just be there, and see what's going on. And then we're on site for all these jobs as well. So it's a revolving door. They can place their maintenance request online, but they want to come in and say, hi, like, are you checking on that? What's the status on that? or I can't pay my rent until Wednesday or whatever it is. So I do think putting the money into the leasing office is super beneficial. I would say second would be if you have a model unit, would be the model unit, because that's where you build the relationship with the potential tenant. That's where you can spend some time with them and start to ask questions about their life, about their family. It's you're walking or driving to this little tour. You're solidifying that sales pitch. So I think the model unit, if you have one, is super important. And then next, I would say just exterior in general. Exterior, and then I would say signage. And then last for me would be amenities,
That makes
Hmm.
sense.
because those are the foundation elements. The amenities are the extras, you know? And be sure when you do these things that you do have it photographed. That's one of our checklists. We're super systems oriented, and we walk people through step by step by step what needs to be done. We have checklists for your team. We have checklists for our team. And we want to make sure that after it's installed and the big reveal happens, that it gets professionally photographed and you get it on your website. Because why do all that if it's not, giving it legs to have it as a great tool?
How important do you think is a model unit? Sometimes, for example, an opportunity could be leasing out that unit and increasing NOI, but some could argue you need one.
Sure.
What
I
is
think
your
it
feeling?
depends on the size and on the occupancy. The property that I had was 108 units. And what we decided, because we did want to rent out every unit and our occupancy was high when we took it, and then we kept it high all the way through. We kept it at 95 like the whole way through, was take a unit, completely make it into like a platinum unit. We had different levels. We had silver, gold, and platinum, which is a great way to test the rents by doing different upgrades in different units. So we did silver, gold, platinum. We made it into a platinum, and then we completely furnished it with staging. And then we photographed it, we destaged it, and then we put all that on the website. So for a small property, I think that's one solution. On a larger property, you might need one or two or three model units, depending on how big the property is and how far you have to drive to get to each one. And you could do a silver, gold, and a platinum, or you could do a gold and a platinum or something like that if you wanted to. But I think the benefit that people don't think about is it helps you close. People can walk through, you're spending time with them, you're not just showing them a drawing, you're not just, showing them an empty unit. Empty units look small. They look smaller than they are. As soon as you get furniture in there, furnishings and art and stuff in the kitchen and traffic paths and cool bedrooms and bathrooms and things like that, they can envision themselves living there. They can be like, oh, I could put my sofa there. I could put my chair here. There's a reading space here. There's room for a king size bed with two nightstands. I can tell now, that kind of thing.
It's easier
So I
for
think it's a great
potential tenants,
sales tool.
for sure. Like, I think if anyone of us have lived in apartments, I remember being like, you have to visualize your things in this area. And I think it's easier when it's staged. Like, you're completely right.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about, like, you've been in the business a while and you've had to keep up with trends, ever-changing trends. I'm sure
Yes.
some of them you're like, ugh. But I know that we have seen a good few changes, like massive changes from like the grays and all this jazz to now. What are you seeing in 2025? Like, what do you think is going to be the pressing amenities and all the trends of colors and all that?
Okay. Well, regarding trends of colors, we've had gray for so long. And about 2 years ago, we started transitioning away from pure gray to a more what we call like palomino floors. The color is called palomino, like a color of a palomino horse, kind of a blondish taupey color. So we were recommending, because we assist with unit interior packages also, we help ownership groups put together unit interior packages, what would be included in it from the vendors they used if you want to do a silver, gold, platinum, something like that. So we were always recommending from 2 years ago to switch over to this palomino colored flooring, this lighter colored flooring. It's not gold, it's not really blonde, it's more in between a blonde and a taupe. Now we're seeing it transition even a little bit more towards like a mushroom or taupey color. So we're going from gray back to brown. It always makes this big giant loop every 10 years or so. We were in brown, then we were in gray. Now we're going back to brown. But things are just warmer, a little bit warmer than they used to be, and getting away from a stark cold gray. So that's the main thing there. For amenities trends, I made some notes because we are seeing some new things kind of coming in 2025 and what's really important to residents. So for B class in particular, and obviously A, an in-unit washer and dryer is super important. And, people just don't want to go to laundromats and things like that. So that's a big one. The high-speed internet is major for all classes that, maybe do a package that includes that. So high-speed internet. This is a new one that I think is important to think about going forward for all classes, and it's quiet spaces. So what kind of area could you offer for relaxation and mental wellness? So this could be the Bark Park where there's benches and things like that they could go out with their dogs. It could be grill areas. It could be meditation spaces. It could be something inside the leasing office if it's large, or it could be like a quiet zone of some sort, or it could be outside. It could be a business center that's quiet, but just thinking about wellness, quiet wellness spaces, I think is a new one. The other one that would be great for A class, and you could use it for B or C also, is called makers spaces. And this is dedicated areas for creating like creative activities such as painting, crafting, all those kind of things support mental health as well. So a lot of communities want to do resident activities, community activities, things like that. So having a space that's maybe like a crafts room, everybody loves, doing crafts, and coming together and creating more community is kind of a newer one that we're focusing on. For class A, I think coffee bars are always amazing. And even in B and C class, we always set up a beverage station. We always do a cabinet of some sort so that everything can be hidden below all the backup products, but having a really nice beverage station for people who come in that are potential tenants, vendors that come in, those kinds of things. And one of the tricks is to make a cup of coffee when you come in the morning and even just let it sit there. And that smell kind of goes throughout the leasing office. So it's an inviting scent. And then co-working spaces, particularly for class A, a lot of people work remotely now, from home. And so if they do want to get away from their apartment, kind of go to work, come home, that type of thing, if they can have some kind of co-working space or a business center space that they could go and work or go do homework or, get a teenager out of the apartment and go study and focus, that kind of thing. That's another amenity that's trending. And then smart home features, smart thermostats, smart lighting systems, automated property management. So using AI-powered tools for tasks like maintenance request and resident feedback even. So how can we use AI or anything automated to improve our efficiency? And then kind of the last one that we're seeing in A lot is the electric vehicle charging stations. So there's more and more electric vehicles. So how can we make sure that our residents have easy accessibility to that?
There's one that I
Yeah.
really like with the pet spas. Have you seen those?
Yes, pet spas.
Yeah.
The other thing, talking about the quiet or meditation kind of zone, are hammock parks, where you make like a hammock park area outside somewhere. It could be like 6 hammocks kind of spread apart, kind of diagonal, zigzaggy, where they're not right next to somebody else, and people will lay there and read and relax.
If you think about it, a lot of them are about how society's kind of moving so fast paced and everyone's needing to get away and have that wellness time or that self-care time, but they also
Yes.
need amenities that help them be more efficient. They don't want to walk their clothing to the laundromat. They don't want
Yes.
to, have weak internet. I mean, some people like to leave their house. I've worked from home for a decade, so I do sometimes leave my house for a coffee shop. So I
Yeah.
get that part. But that does make sense. I mean, the hammock park you could see in B and C. A lot of these are probably A's, but I think a great takeaway for B and C's is to have that welcoming space in that leasing office. You've kind of changed the way I'm rebranding this property I'm doing right now. So I appreciate this conversation.
Good.
We have time for one more question, but we all wanted to know what are you having on the horizon for your GP deals next year or this year?
Yeah. I'm an asset manager on another deal. I recently joined the asset management team. I was a GP already, but I recently joined the asset management team. So now that I've sold the other property, I have more bandwidth to take on this other property in Dallas. So I'm working on that. And I mean, it's like a puzzle. These properties are just digging in and spending time every single day on this baby, you know, that you're trying to make sure grows strong, and you've got your investors' money, and, you know, all those kinds of things. So that's a major thing for me, is taking over as an asset manager on this deal, this second deal. But in addition, I think the second half of 2025 in particular is when I'll start really focusing on acquisition. I mean, we've been looking for deals for, you know, the last 2 or 3 years. It just hasn't made sense, what we've looked at, and with interest rates and all of that. So definitely, I would like to acquire 1 or 2 more deals in 2025.
Beautiful.
It was a pleasure having you on, Lisa,
Thank you.
and we'd love to have you back in the
How do people
future.
get in contact with you?
Yeah, people can get in contact. The easiest way is probably our website, which is www.landrydesigns with an S, landrydesigns.com, or info@landrydesigns.com would be a good email. And all of that gets forwarded to me if it's for me in particular.